Today I wanted to talk a little bit before we get started about a few of the things that we're going to be working towards. As I mentioned yesterday, although not everybody's there, you shouldn't be doing a lot of work with text and images now. We should be moving towards the 3D part and the assembly part. The overall shape of your work has to be this size right here. So I'm going to be coming around to most of you today to make sure that you have a way to have a fixture at all four corners of your piece, and maybe the middle part. So we'll be talking about how that all works too. All the stations are up and running, so when I say go, you can all start getting your equipment and getting to work. Any questions? Okay, get started. And the theme Walls and Barriers for me moves beyond physical walls. They can be physical in some ways, but most of them are conceptual. We started off this project. It was inspired by a woman, Vanessa Barnett, and she's actually doing her PhD on education and art and social change. And so she got together with the Royal Ontario Museum and an upcoming exhibition by an artist named El Anatsui. He's a Ghanaian artist from Africa, world-renowned, and he works with recycled materials to create these large fabric-like pieces. And I was challenging my students to move beyond physical walls into ones that are more conceptual. So we started off the process by looking at some video, and the work is created using, it's gorgeous. It looks like metallic gold, but it's actually created out of the tops of liquor bottles and the lid area and some of the labels from beer cans, and they're all wired together. And so that was our artist approach inspiration. Nations are here in this bag.
I'm gluing pills on to show substance abuse. I'm also going to do a weed and alcohol, just to show that it is a barrier and some people need to overcome that, but it's really hard. I'm going to connect another panel here with like a picture of vodka, and I'm going to color it. Another one, I'm going to have cannabis. And then to make it more 3D, I'm going to hang cigarettes from these two holes here. I'm going to put a wire here, and they're going to hang. I'm going to cut it in half. And then over here, these holes are so I could connect it to another panel. And I'm doing that with bows. So they're going to be little bows. It's a big problem, and it's happened to lots of people I know. And it's something that I want this to show a message, and maybe it'll get to some people in some way.
That's, well, you have to do something to stick them together,
yeah, exactly.
Right?
So
you can use thread.
Should I just do a portfolio? But then, like, it'll ruin the picture. I didn't think. My theme is music,
well,
so
okay.
I picked music because music everyone can relate to. Since music, it's by the ear. You hear it everywhere, and it can pass through anything that's thick or hard, like a wall. So for this project, using music, it sends out a message.
The research we did related to borders between countries, walls between people socially, personal borders, limitations, blocks, things like language, culture, race. Most of my students did research, first of all, on the artist, El Anatsui, and we did that online on the computers. Then we did research on the theme of walls on computers. They then did a presentation.
For this project, we started by doing some research on walls and barriers in partners. So we each had a topic, and we had to put together a presentation to present to the rest of the class. And that was kind of our intro, and we learned a lot more about like the types of walls and barriers and like visible and invisible ones, and got some more ideas of what we could do for our project. My topic was the glass ceiling, so I included points about the glass ceiling and how it's an invisible barrier and what it is and how to overcome it.
They certainly all did get experience in researching in depth on one type of barrier. They then presented to the rest of the class, and so it's a bit of a jigsaw where in the end all the students knew about all of these different concepts or terms or ideas. In this particular group, they talked about the glass ceiling, described the fact that it blocks advancement, and that it was a transparent barrier, one that can't be seen physically but was definitely there. There was a fair bit of research done, and they did have to present orally, which is part of our expectations in the curriculum, to be able to articulate and express your ideas both written and orally as well as in the artwork.
from that topic, I decided to also do a barrier that isn't quite as obvious, one that's more, people tend to ignore it even though it's there, which is the barrier between kids today and nature, because no one goes outside anymore. They just play video games, go on the computer, Facebook, and like families don't really go out for like a hike on the weekend or go camping.
All students in this project, and it's being done by 11 schools and over 300 students, have a piece of paper, piece of plexiglass this size to work with as their working space. That piece of plexiglass, however, had to be purchased, and I wanted everything to be recycled. So I got these pieces of plastic from a recycle depot called Arts Junction in our board. So these were somebody else's garbage that we inherited. So I'm asking my students to take that same footprint, but use pieces of recycled plexiglass in the project instead.
I'm trying to include both urban life and nature, but I'm trying to make it like a very big difference between the two. Like my urban pieces are in black and white, and the photographs are very realistic, whereas my nature pieces are more creative, sketched out in color. I'm trying to tell kids that like there is a world outside the four walls of their house, and that they should go out and see more of it.
It's their original work, or they've appropriated honestly, right, the way they should without contravening copyright, so that they're aware of the rights of artists in general. And then they had to decide how they were going to take their elements and move them onto their 3 plates, how the plates are going to be attached together, and how they can express their idea completely with this alone, without an artist statement, not necessarily having to be around to explain it. There should be enough information here to get the message across. Because this will be sitting next to 300 other pieces, sitting in a large exhibition space somewhere in the Royal Ontario Museum. So the students' work will be displayed in a large public venue later on. I'm just going to take a quick look over what we have here and comment on where we're at so that you understand what each other is doing. I'm going to talk first of all about John's work, and it has to do with gaming and how that can be a barrier to getting things done. It's interesting because my son has exactly the same problem. He struggles with something called World of Warcraft. But anyway, what I like about what John's done so far is he's talked about, is this mostly a block? Do you show the good side at all, or is it only the bad side? The bad side only. So that's what's central, and that's the reading I get. It's a negative reading of this particular technology, so that's good. It says things loud and clear.
What inspired me to pursue visual arts was my family was always very creative. So from the time I was very little, I was always sketching and drawing, and my grandma gave me lessons, and so did my mother. And they've just helped me through my entire life, like learning art in different types and different mediums.
The skills I learn in this class helps me with my everyday life because I enjoy being creative in everyday life, and it just helps sprinkles your life a little more.
Angelica, interesting. You've got drugs on your plastic. So, and this is the weed, right?
Yeah.
So what's going to go in the central part? What's the message?
The message is substance abuse, and in the center I'm going to have alcohol
Right.
sticking out again, but not as much as that. I might write words here. I'm not
Possibly.
sure yet. Yeah.
When I give feedback, I usually point out something that I really like. I'll be like, oh, that looks really cool. I like how you did that. But for this part here, maybe you could try doing this and see how that looks.
Show how it affects people.
Show
Show a person depressed or something showing they're not going through their regular life. Like they put text on it.
Yeah.
But isn't it high up? You won't be really able to read anything.
Right. I think we have
Maybe
to
like a symbolized word, like you can write one word that
Could be one.
represents it.
When I get feedback, I'm really thankful to them because it helps me out. And I'll try to like sketch out their idea and lay it out, see what it looks like. And sometimes I won't go with my original idea or their idea. I'll try like something in between and see how that looks. I just say like give your students a lot of feedback because it really is helpful, and to always be like encouraging and say that's really, really good. You can try this, maybe that make it even better. Try this layout to really like get them thinking about what they're doing.
Well, the website's integral because it's integral in my teaching in general. When I came back to the classroom a year and a half ago, I decided that I wanted to supplement the classroom a little bit with the web. That was part of the studies I did in grad school. And it also helps to capture students who have that affinity, who like to be on screen. Some kids are more, paper and pen. Some students like to be messy in the classroom. But for me, it also was, I guess, a little bit of differentiated instruction, allowing students to have access to instruction from another venue. I also found last year that it was amazing for my students who are ESL, because I tend to speak rather quickly, and what would happen is they would start to jumble things down or not understand and then just look dumb and try and pick up from other classmates. I was teaching one day in this room. I had the blog up, I was giving instructions, and then I got upset because I looked down and I saw somebody else was on another website. So I charged over to say, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm looking at your website in translation, miss." So they actually translated the website and were able to decode some of the information there. I think now I try and work my classroom kind of as a lab, where students kind of drive the process after the problem has been proposed by the teacher. So I have my website, you have to go here, you have to sit in twos, and you do this activity, and it's even timed sometimes. And as I move through the process, though, there becomes a part where I'm asking students to take ownership, and then the physical construction of what's happening in the classroom changes. So I always try and start with everybody in one room and me talking, and if there's been something that went on the day before that I need to correct or adjust or reinforce, I'll do that up front. And all of that administrivia stuff happens up front. But on studio days after that, we literally turn into a lab. And when students come to me, sometimes it's my idea in response to a question, but oftentimes it turns back into, or after we discuss, I'll say, "Does that work for you?" Through the process, I'm continually asking for confirmation from them. And I wouldn't like it if they just said, "Yes, miss." And I get a lot of pushback from this class, which I love. I'm always trying to honor their way of working, and as a control freak, I'm trying to step back and allow them to make a few mistakes first before I step in and say, "This might be the solution that'll work best for you."
Our teacher allows us to put our creative imagination onto a piece of paper or any type of canvas.
The whole idea of a media lab where maybe I'm giving marks at the end, or a final evaluation, but somehow students can confirm, or they know inside that they've achieved something that they want to, that they're proud of. And so for me, level 4 is when they feel like, I want it to be seen. I can talk about it, I can show it off. It's in the halls, and there's usually a huddle when I first put stuff out in the halls. And that really confirms that the learning has happened. It's not my mark that confirms, it's a student's perception and my agreement with that. It's a conclusion that we come to together. And so that's why all those building processes don't need to be marked per se. It's the culminating that really teases it out in the end, and it's confirmed not by myself, but by the class and by the student.
I love all the different kinds of stuff we get to do and all the different mediums we get to use. Because at the beginning of the year, we did film, we did 2D and 3D animation. We've done boutique, so like painting on fabric with wax. We're doing this multimedia project now. So I love all the different things we get to work with.
I think what really turns me on right now is the energy in a class. If you can take anything from the way that I operate now with my students, I think it's a mutual path that we go on. It's the voyage that I take with each student in finding their voice, both visually and verbally, and being able to express what they want. That's the most exciting thing. But it's that blooming of an idea and culturing it till it solidifies. That's the most exciting thing for me. And that's what I wish for in all my classes. It doesn't happen, but when it does, there's nothing like it.